It's just and tell us what they be telling y'all at home that make y'all not like us so bad.
So you already know a lot of what my content covers, like racial triangulation, the model minority myth, Asian businesses in black neighborhoods, affirmative action, and so on. As for what I was told in the home behind closed doors when I was growing up, that's not the most fun trip down memory lane, but I always like to be honest about acknowledging anti-blackness among Asian Americans, especially when the call was coming from my own house, so here we go. I first became aware of my mom's anti-blackness when I started kindergarten, and it mostly centered around avoiding interactions with black people and not allowing me to be exposed to anything that she considered black culture. So if we were walking and she saw a black person, she would pull me closer to her. If we were in the car in a parking lot and saw a black person in the parking lot, she would make a point to lock the doors, and I wasn't allowed to listen to rap or Michael Jackson or Tina Turner. And she was hypocritical about that, because I wasn't allowed to listen to Cyndi Lauper or Madonna either. She would call it trash music and say that it was going to be a bad influence, but if it was a white artist, it was not racialized. It was only when it was black artists that it was racialized. And another thing that I think is kind of typical is, as a musician, there were a lot of black artists whom she respected and enjoyed, but she would always say that one black artist is the exception, the rest are bad influences. When I went to school, if I came home and said I made a friend, her first question would be white or black. And that drove me nuts, because in preschool, I dealt with a lot of bullying and discrimination because of being Asian, so it didn't make sense to me that she wanted me to turn around and do that very same thing to my black classmates, whom she knew nothing about, on the basis of their skin color. And when I wouldn't stay away from my black friends, she would resort to making up justifications as to why it was harmful for me. She would say they're going to hurt me and they're going to be a bad influence because they fight and they swear and they're not good students. And of course, none of that was true. And in my household, it was not physically or emotionally safe to voice your opinions, but about that I would, because it literally angered me. And then she would resort to physical violence. And that sealed the deal in my mind that prejudice is purely irrational, because none of her claims had any basis in reality, and that's why she had to resort to physical force. Unfortunately, I think that when parents resort to intimidation and violence to instill prejudice in their children, a lot of times it works. But I was very lucky, because the principal of my elementary school was a black woman who implemented a program called Students Educating Each Other About Discrimination. And that wasn't centered on racial discrimination, it was about discrimination in general. But in that program, we learned to have discussions about discrimination and to identify it and disrupt it. Which at that age just means if you witness discrimination, say it's discrimination and articulate how you know that it's discrimination. So from learning that very powerful tool at school, I was able to identify that what my mom was doing at home was wrong. Additionally, the principal was a black woman, so I had a black woman in a position of leadership as a role model. And in my school district, she wasn't a token. They really valued black leadership, from teachers to administration, guidance counselors, all the way up to superintendents. And so I was surrounded by black role models who made me see that reality did not line up with what my mom was trying to teach me. The straw that broke the camel's back was sometime around the ages of between 7 and 9, I was planning a birthday party, and I told my mom that I want to invite my friend Keisha, which I knew was going to be an issue, but I thought I would try. And she said no, and I said, fine, then I don't want to have a birthday party, and she made me have the birthday party. So now that felt like that's not only cruel to me, but that's cruel to my friend Keisha, whom you don't even know because you refused to meet her. Shortly after that, we were walking in the mall, and my mom did this thing that she often did, which is she sees black people minding their own business, and under her breath, she mumbles a derogatory term in Chinese for black people. And I remember I pulled back on her hand and faced her, and I said, they are not doing anything. You don't know them. The next time you do that, I am going to go up to them and I'm going to tell them what you said. And believe it or not, the fear of exposure by me actually made her tone it down, and she stopped doing that in public. Fortunately, my mom did not live and die that way. In later years, she came around to seeing and later openly admitting how wrong she was. In her older age, one of her best friends really was black, and my mom admitted to her friend what her previous attitudes had been and why. And from those conversations, I was able to gain some insight as to what my mom's motivation was for her anti-blackness. Because I think most people feel, since Asian Americans also are harmed by white supremacy, how does it make any sense for Asian Americans to be anti-black? My mom spent most of her young life in Hong Kong when it was under British occupation, and then in the 1950s, she came to the United States when she was 16 years old. Generations before my mom, her family had been living in and doing business around Shanghai, Hong Kong, and Macau, which were French, British, and Portuguese occupied areas. So she was heavily indoctrinated into anti-Blackness in Hong Kong, where she had no exposure to Black people that would have shown her a different reality. And furthermore, what she was indoctrinated into is the idea that an Asian can elevate their status in white spaces by aligning with white supremacy, which includes aligning with anti-Blackness. So I think what my mom was doing with me is that from a young age, she saw that I was having a hard time as an Asian American assimilating. So she felt that if I associated with Black classmates, that would make assimilating into white spaces even harder. And she was concerned that associating with Black classmates would negatively impact my status in white spaces. Well, we all know with me that the outcome was I understand very clearly what spaces I want to be part of and what spaces I don't. So my mom was really proud that she was westernized. She was proud that she spoke English without an accent, that she was very well versed in European culture, and she actually looked down upon my dad for being what she called traditional and therefore backwards. Right, so where was my dad in all of this? My dad grew up in Taiwan, where he had no exposure to Black people, but he also had very little exposure to Western media. I think when he came to the United States, he was a bit uncertain around Black people because of the lack of familiarity and the slight media bias, but it only took a very little being around Black people to see that prejudice is irrational and that it serves a white supremacist agenda that he doesn't want to uphold. As I said before, in my household, it wasn't physically or emotionally safe to voice opinions that differed from my mom, so I do understand why my dad didn't speak up when my mom was being anti-Black. He had a hard enough time keeping my brother and I safe. However, what he would do is when it was just my dad and I, he would make sure to teach me or give me resources about accurate Black history. So for example, a lot of my mom's rhetoric surrounded musicians, so my dad would teach me about Berry Gordy, Chuck Berry, Marian Anderson, Jesse Norman. If the claim was that Black people don't value education, he would tell me about Black scholars, academics, and scientists, and so on. So that, in a nutshell, is what I was told at home behind closed doors when I was growing up.
As we have seen from the video, and an observation that you have definitely not missed is that racism is taught. You're not born being a racist, you're taught how to be a racist. And hate is generational. So if your parent taught you to be a hater and to be a racist, you will become a racist and you will become a hater unless you choose your own path, like the lady in this video, who I would love to commend, especially because you come to see the other side of children who have been taught something and have gone against what they have been taught, especially if they feel that it doesn't align with their spirit. And I know I talk a lot about the spiritual nature of people and how people are not, especially white people. You find that nowadays so many white people are coming out talking about how racism is bad, standing with Black people, and that's because their spirits have not been aligned well with the world. They have not been aligned well with everything around the world, because you cannot shed all that blood, you cannot torture people the way you have and still live a nice life without having any kind of issues, any kind of nightmares, or a burden that you're carrying that you don't understand. And that's why you find that so many white people are so mad and so angry all the time. And even other white people, they tell you that most of us are not even happy. We are honestly very, very angry. We don't even like each other. We just don't have a community with between white people. And that's because there are white people who actually, that's because their spirit is not sitting well with whatever is happening, and their spirit is actually getting entangled with the worldly nature. Because right now, to be a racist, especially in this time and age, it kind of we can't talk, because if you hate someone just because of their color of their skin without knowing their characteristics, especially now, especially when Trump is president, a white person who has shown his fellow white people that even a white person can be mean to you, can treat you very, very badly, even though you chose them, and you want to still be racist, I think there's something wrong with you. There's just something wrong with you. You're beyond anything, honestly. And it's funny how racists have this fear of exposure, because when the lady said that she's going to expose her mom for, doing or saying certain things, especially in a language that the Black people don't understand, she said, I'm going to actually say you. And from there she was silent. And this is something I talk about a lot. If you're a white person, or anyway, now even an Asian, who feels that whatever is happening around your family, whatever is happening around you is not something that you like, or it's not something that sits right with you, you can always speak up. And those people who are actually being mean or being terrible people, are, against other people, once they hear what you have to say, they will start being uncomfortable. They will start being uncomfortable because you find that racism doesn't even have a backbone. You're just racist because that's what you have been taught. Most people are racist and they don't even know why they're racist. You ask someone, a white person, why are you racist? So you hate black people. Why? They start talking about things that don't even make sense. Talking about how black people pose a great danger to white people. When you all know that white on white crime, is higher than any other thing in America. White people kill more of their own, a lot. You look at the statistics, that is what is true. It is fact. It's facts. It's factual. So making people uncomfortable, especially in spaces where you enter, it's good, because when you address the elephant in the room, you let them carry that elephant, When you had a heaviness in your heart, or you didn't want to address that elephant, you're doomed to carry that weight on your shoulder. But once you talk about it, they now carry that elephant on their shoulder because they don't have a backbone. They don't know why they're even actually being whatever they're being, And it's also funny how, obviously not funny in a good way, but it's funny how her Asian mom was more racist, or was racist towards black people than actually telling her kid, or teaching her kid to avoid white people and to be mean or not talk to white people. She actually preferred her kid to be around the people who invaded her country and colonized it. Her mom was far much better with her kid aligning with people who invaded her country, did all kinds of atrocious things, than she would prefer her kid to be friends with a black person who has never done anything to her. And you want to tell me that racists are okay people? A black person, you have never even met a black person. You have never met a black person. And once you meet them, you don't even want to know anything about them. You don't want to talk to them. You just choose not to like them. And then you have kids and then you tell them not to like black people. You tell them to avoid black people at any cost, when black people have done completely nothing. They're just minding their own business. While the white people who you actually want your kids to align with, your kids to be friends with, are the people who invaded your country and have hurt your people, and probably have even made you migrate from that country to America. Maybe, I'm not sure. But that is what most countries who people have invaded in, they usually move from one country to the other because they're trying to look for greener pastures. So she's telling her kid to be friends with people who have maybe mistreated her or her family, or have been absolutely terrible to her and her family, but chooses that her kid be friends with those people, those specific types of people. Okay. And I think not teaching your kids about racism does not cure racism, and it's not quite a solution to racism. You have to talk about these uncomfortable topics. You have to be ready to have these uncomfortable talks, because people who don't know about their history, they are doomed to repeat it. White kids who don't know about the history of racism and slavery, they're doomed to act like their parents. And black people continuously tell you, especially right now, that they are not their ancestors. Whatever you did before, that's not happening again, ever again. So you teaching your kids to be racist when you know that it also didn't work for you as a parent, because obviously you didn't find black people as slaves, but your great grandparents are actually the ones who owned slaves. So you are carrying on something that is actually not even, you can't even practice it right now, but you're still carrying it and you're teaching it to your kids. You're teaching your kids to be racist. Then they come out to the streets, and then when they come out to the streets, they get slapped. You want your kids to get slapped, huh? You want your kids to get slapped? Because I've also seen black women talking about how it's so sad that they have gone to school and they have either had about a white kid being racist towards a black child, saying, I don't play with black people, I don't play with black girls or black boys. And obviously this is not something that they knew. They are kids. They have been told that you're not supposed to play with black children. They are whatever they were told about black children. And it's very sad and it's very, very annoying, and it's just ugly for people right now and in this time and age to be so mean to people who have literally done nothing to them. You are the ones who have been mean to those people, but you're continuing to carry out the same thing. You are letting your kids carry your burdens. You're letting your kids carry heaviness in their spirits, in their souls, in their hearts. You're darkening their hearts, and you don't even know it. Because the same thing you were taught, the same thing that has made you probably ugly inside, is what you're teaching your kids to be. So when will this cycle end? Don't you want your family to be in freedom? Don't you want your family to be free? Don't you? Teach kids about history. We find topics about white people saying, if we teach about slavery, our white kids are going to, it's such a brutal thing to talk about, so we don't want our white kids to learn about these things. And yet black kids learn about it at a young age. So what is the difference between those two? And mind you, your kids only have to learn about it. They don't have to live with it. They learn about it and then they choose to do something or not to do something. It's their choice. But black kids have to be taught about their history, about slavery, and about how these white people have been mean to us, and they still have to carry that because they also have to be street smart. They have to know how to handle white people, racist people in the streets. They have to know how to handle cops in the streets as kids. And yet you are saying that your white kid is not supposed to just learn about it, just to hear about the things that you did. And yet black kids have to learn and then carry and then learn more things, because they also have to know how to live in a society where everything is set to go against them, to fight them. I think it's time that people, and I'm really, really commending that Asian girl for speaking up and speaking out against such silly things. She saw that something is not right and she actually spoke to her parents about it and said, no, that is not how you do it. That's not how you do something. So for the white kids or for any other, Asians in America are also minorities. And it's so silly that you're a minority and you're being racist towards another person who's a minority, when you know that the whole issue that you're a minority and you're considered a minority and not just a person in America, you have been labeled as a minority because they don't see you as part of them. It's funny that you're labeled as a minority and yet you want to be racist towards people who are there with you, people who you share some of the same things with, because obviously you can't quite understand what black people go through. Neither can black people know what Asians and Hispanics and Latinas go through. So it's really weird, but I do commend people who are coming out and speaking up against their parents, against their grandparents, against things that they were taught, against their families and what they were taught, and actually saying that was not right, and I will do better. I will do a better job. I will support black kings and queens. I will support minority groups, and I will do something about it. Even as I speak in front of my camera, I'm doing something about it. Because we are finding so many white people right now are speaking against racism. We're finding so many white people are speaking against a rule that is hurting a certain people and then benefiting other people just because of the color of their skin. People are waking up and deciding that that's not what they want to live with. That's not what they want. And I do commend the people who actually have humanity inside them and are actually working towards a better tomorrow. I do commend them. And if you have learned something and you have liked this video, kindly do consider subscribing, sharing and liking. Share to your friends and family so that we can continue to learn and grow together. And I would hope that you comment what your thoughts about this particular topic. I'd like to hear and interact with you down in the comments below. And if you'd like to support me in another way, I do have a Buy Me a Coffee link down in the description below for everyone who has been supporting me in that way. Thank you so much. If you'd like to, just tap the link and it will get you directly to how you can buy me a coffee. And if you do, thank you so much. And I hope to see you in the next video. Goodbye.